What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Rob Bear here today with issue 76 of the new White Dwarf. This is it's a really interesting one. It's got a couple of new units in here. We get our first look at some of the new plastic multi-part kits for the new Age of Sigmar, and they look really good. I mean, there's some different weapon options and a couple different things here and there. Also, some of the history of the Age of Sigmar, kind of like a preview, I guess, of maybe some kind of what happened between the end times and what's going to be in the new Age of Sigmar book. And a couple of, paint splatter. It's not like a full-on paint splatter. It's kind of like a mini splatter, we'll say. But there's still some really cool, useful stuff in here. It doesn't come with a free miniature like last week. But still, it's definitely, if you're getting into Age of Sigmar and you want to check it out, there isn't a whole lot of 40k stuff in here. Kind of like the last, say 9 months of White Dwarfs, there wasn't much fantasy stuff in it, but now we're really starting to see more Age of Sigmar, as opposed to 40k, which is kind of cool because it's taking the brunt off the 40k load. They don't have to put out as much stuff and as much content. We can kind of catch up as, a predominantly 40k player myself. I can start to catch up and start to formulate, some army lists and things in my head instead of worrying about what's coming out the next week. So I think it's a win-win for everybody as far as, sales-wise, as far as, being able to pick and choose your hobby and have a little bit more time these days. So first off, there's this great shot of, Sigmar and them kind of doing their thing. And then we get into the new kit, the Liberators. That's a multi-part plastic kit. Now, of course, some of these guys come in the Age of Sigmar box, but they're not as badass looking. They don't have these really sweet poses. And also, you kind of notice here that there's a double-handed hammer thing right here. And these, I forget what these things are called, and I'm not 100% up on the rules yet. I haven't even played my first game. I definitely want to. But I just haven't had the opportunity yet. I'm really digging the rules and trying to do the research. I downloaded all the world scrolls on my iPad, and I'm trying to work my way through them because there's like 600 of them. And I looked through the Age of Sigmar rules, obviously, but I haven't actually, knowing the rules is one thing, but actually putting the models on the table and playing it is another. So I hope to get a game in sometime this week. So you can kind of see here some of the different weapon options that these guys come with, called War Blades, it looks like. And then you got the Grand Blade here, very, Grey Knight-esque kind of look to them, I feel like. But then you got all these alternate paint schemes, and kind of depending on how complex you want to do or how simplistic you want to go, you can do all sorts of different paint schemes here, and they kind of show you that, which is really neat. Then there's the Lord Celestin release also, and he's obviously a badass. I mean, look at all this cool stuff like this. He's gonna come as a clan pack. I think he's $33, so that was really cool. And then they got the preview for the new rulebook itself. A new era begins, and they kind of foreshadowed like what's gonna come in there. Now, a lot of people were speculating a lot of things here and there, but it turns out that it's mostly, according to this article here, about half of it is actual story. So they're probably filling in kind of what happened in between, the end times and the Age of Sigmar right now. Apparently, there's a planet called Malleus, which was like the core of the world that was, the old world. And I guess they basically built it, Sigmar built his base of operations up around it, and then, the realms kind of formed around that. So that's kind of what I get from this brief preview here, but it's a very good article, so it's definitely worth reading. And then, of course, there's going to be, I think it was 24 war scrolls in here and a couple of battalions as well, and the new rules for the Sylvaneth, I think they call them. Basically the treemen, obviously the G-Dub's new name for treemen, so you got some war scrolls for those guys too. Now, I haven't compared this to the Wood Elf war scrolls that are, obviously available for free by Games Workshop, but there might be some different stuff in here. I'm not exactly sure yet. Like I said, it's a lot of material. It's like, boom, you get a new game, and here's 600 pages of rules. Haven't exactly caught up with it quite yet, but we're getting there, obviously. And Codex Apocrypha, that was kind of like the preview that I just kind of gave you with the origins of the Age of Sigmar rule and things like that. So obviously well written. Traditionally, this has been written by Phil Kelly in the past, but they don't really put authors on anything anymore. I guess because of all the Matt Ward hate, which is a little, it's a little sad, but you can kind of tell once you get the idea for somebody's writing style, you can definitely follow along with it. I feel like this definitely feels like Phil Kelly. So there's that. And then they get into, kind of showing you a lot of the different, kind of, this here's the Forces of Order, and they're kind of getting into like who they are and what they do and things like that. Now, remember, part of the Forces of Order is, you've got these factions, like there's Forces of Order, Forces of Destruction, Forces of Chaos, Forces of Undead, obviously Nagash, Chaos is Chaos, Destruction is the Ogres and the orcs, whatever their new name is, I forget. So then you got them foreshadowing, Seraphon, which are obviously the lizardmen, because they bounced down in their space pyramids in the end times and then just kind of appear at whim, I guess now in the Age of Sigmar, just doing their thing, fighting the forces, fighting a good fight. And then you got the Sylvaneth, I guess it's called, which are the Wood Elves themselves. And like I said, there's going to be some war scrolls for them in the new 264-page rulebook that comes out next week for the Age of Sigmar. Now in here, you've got the 2 data scrolls that give you, or excuse me, 2 war scrolls that give you the rules for the new releases that are coming out next week. Now, I didn't check to see, because the Liberators obviously aren't new. These guys were in the starter box. But what I didn't check was to see if they had these options in the starter box. Now, I imagine they had the Grand Hammer because there's a couple of them in there. But, it's interesting to point out that we have the rules here. And, honestly, just kind of flipping at them, 3 up to hit with the Grand Blade, 4 up to wound, kind of flip-flops between the Grand Blade and the Grand Hammer right here. -1 to rend, and then you've got damage at 2, so that seems pretty solid. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I feel like getting the gate is a little bit better, so I'd go with the to hit on 3s. That seems better, and the higher to wound, because I'd rather have that chance. At least I know that I hit, I feel like at that point. So, the pretty decent rules there. Lord Celestin, obviously the standalone miniature. We saw, the crazy one riding the Thunder Lizard here recently in the starter box. Now you can get the guy on foot too, if you're kind of going for that. So let's take a look at their actual weapons here, kind of how they're doing things. So you got Liberator Prime, which is basically the sergeant in the squad, makes 3 attacks rather than 2, so that's cool. More attacks the better, I feel like. Abilities: paired weapon. An extra weapon allows the Liberator to feint and parry, creating openings in their opponent's guard. You can reroll hits of 1 for models armed with more than 1 Warhammer or Warblade, so that's pretty good. You basically have quote-unquote preferred enemy. Kind of neat to see. Lay low the tyrants. If any model from the unit selects an enemy unit with a wound characteristic of 5 or more as the target for all its attacks in combat, add 1 to the model's hit rolls in the combat phase. So that's kind of like a little equalizer going up against some big monsters and things like that. So that's kind of cool to see. Sigmarite shields, remember, all of the armor things are made by that magical element called Sigmarite, I believe it's called. So you got all this stuff kind of happening. Then I guess it would be mined from Malice itself, which was the core of the old world where Sigmar kind of set up his operations. And they kind of show you, where was it? In this book, right? Or in this picture back here, kind of how all that looks. So here you got, this is basically everything set up over the old core right there, according to all that. So when you reroll a save, rolls a 1 for this unit for any models carrying the Sigmarite shield. So basically you have reroll of 1, so reverse preferred enemy kind of. So that's kind of cool. Neat little rule there. Lord Celestin is a single model, obviously. If he makes a charge move this turn, he can make 1 extra attack with each of his melee weapons. And, they don't have crazy damage output there, but they do have a lot of attacks, which is really cool to see. And you can switch kind of depending on how you want to do it here. You got 2 attacks, but they hit on 4s, but they wound on 3s. Or you got the 4 attacks, hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend. So kind of, some tactical flexibility there. Sigmarite War Cloak. In your shooting phase, you can choose to unleash D6 hammers from this model's War Cloak. Okay, so I guess these little hammers right here, basically a prehensile tail of crazy cape hammer things, I guess. Pick an enemy unit within 16 inches for this model. Each hammer is unleashed, then roll a dice for each. When you picked on a roll of 4 or more, the unit suffers a mortal wound. Okay, you can pick the same unit more than once in a phase, so that's really interesting. So they are crazy badass hammers. Furious Retribution. If this model is your general and uses this ability, the unit may, until your next hero phase, remember the hero phase is the start of the turn, you can add 1 to the result of any hit rolls in the combat phase for this model and friendly Stormcast Eternal units within 9 inches of him. Okay, he seems like I would want him in my army because that seems really good. And of course, this is where the keyword stuff comes into play here, because you check the keywords, boom, there you go. So he's a Stormcast Eternal, there's Stormcast Eternal. I imagine most of the stuff in the army is quote-unquote Stormcast Eternals. So that's kind of how they're kind of alluding to using the keywords. Over here, you got the little mini paint splatter, which is the Hollow Knights Storm Host, I guess, or Legion of Space Marines, kind of depending on how you want to do it. Very simplistic pattern. You can definitely check that out right there. It's very easy, it's a four-part step right there. A little bit extra on the Codex Apocrypha from earlier in the issue, talking about some of the other magical realms there. So then we get to the back where we got the little teaser. Now this is a new format. We saw this last issue, this issue as well, so maybe it's their new format. Next issue that Forces of Chaos is a raid, but where's the Dark Prince? Probably alluding to, you know, supposedly Slaanesh is missing. Now we're seeing something in the rulebook about it. He is indeed missing, and the Forces of Slaanesh are looking for him. Him, it, her, he, she, whatever. And then you've got this really cool looking knight model called the Truth that is definitely pretty cool. I guess it's the Imperial Truth shortened, because it looks like it's got the Mechanicus and the Imperial Aquila there, so maybe some sort of you know, a little homage to that, I would suppose. Then you've got the new release section over here. Like I said, you've got the Liberators, the Lord Celestant, the Age of Sigmar rulebook, the limited edition rulebook, then the digital edition, the 2 dice shakers, and the combat guide, which is the little, where is it? The little combat guide there for the 3-inch thing, 1-inch consolidation. So it's kind of like a tack template, I guess, you know, in that regard, because you've got obviously your 3 inches for, you know, your polylens and things like that, your 1 inch, because everything has to be within 1 inch, remember, and a lot of your attacks have a 1 inch range as well. So your unit coherency has to be 1 inch, and also your attacks have to be generally have a range of 1 inch. So just keep that in mind. There's the limited edition book and the dice shakers. I don't know why they keep putting the symbols on the freaking 1. I tell you what, I want to see that symbol, but I don't want to see it if it's on the 1. So maybe Games Workshop will actually fix that sometime in the near future. I don't know why they put them on the 1s. It just seems so silly to me. So that's about it for this one. I mean, we pretty much went over the majority of it and didn't show you all the little bits and pieces, but you know, that's pretty much stuff that, you know, you can kind of check it out on your own. So obviously it's a good issue to pick up if you're really getting into Age of Sigmar. Now we haven't seen a whole lot on the Forces of Chaos themselves, but hopefully in the near future we will see all of them starting to arrive, all of their multi-part kits, and in all their glory of chaos, so to speak there. So that new Lord Celestant model looks pretty dope, and those Super Ninja prehensile tail hammers are definitely pretty neat in-game as well, and the rerollability seems also very good for your Stormcast Eternals there. So that's about it for this one, guys. Make sure you stay in the trenches, subscribe to this YouTube channel, check out the blog, spikybitsblog.com, and head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive access and early content videos. Become a veteran of the Long War today. Spiky Bits.